Hi everyone, here's the video I promised you about the Lion's Gate and a little bit more about other dates that are going on. I just wanted to talk about the ancient history to this month and how it relates to the Lion's Gate and also the heliacal rising of Sirius. And also I wanted to talk about what's going on for September 11th and also going into the fall, just talking about, the whole thing of the fall. So there's a few dates that we need to keep our eyes open for because there's some planetary alignments, and I want to just let you guys know what they are. So here we go. So in this article that I found, they're not just talking about Cancer and Leo being the Lion's Gate, which would be the middle of, the moon and the sun, because that's what they're ruled by. And it's talking about Gemini and Virgo. And now the next, I've explained this before, the next one after the sun and the moon is Mercury. And both Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, okay? So it's talking here also about Saturn and Jupiter, being bookended on this kind of zodiac, the way they're explaining it, being split at the Lion's Gate. And I'm going to show you that on zodiac circles so it makes sense. Okay, so you see the red line here is the mutable cross, but Leo and Cancer are fire and water. And then exactly opposing it is Aquarius and Capricorn, which again is part of the middle section of the mutable cross. But now we have, instead of fire and water, we have air and earth. Okay, so which would be the middle pillar on the Freemason. The fire and water are the two opposing pillars. And then these two signs, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. And then we have Capricorn, which is ruled by also Saturn. So I don't know how, yeah, and they're saying there that it's flanked by Saturn and Jupiter, which would mean the next planets over would be the Jupiter ruling planets. Okay, so Saturn is they're at the top, the opposing, and then you have Jupiter are the next two opposing planets, which would be not planets, sorry, Sagittarius and Pisces. These are both ruled by Jupiter. Okay, so this is what they mean by bookend. It's really not explained well there, but I just wanted to explain that to you. Okay, and they're also saying here that, the center point of the gate is between Leo and Cancer. And also this is a micronism of what's the Mazzaroth that's in the Bible. Okay, so I guess this author here has done quite a lot of research on this, but I just wanted to share this with you because I thought it's interesting knowing that the Lion's Gate is actually 4 constellations, not just 2. And of course, it's got Mercury, basically flanked on both sides with Mercury. Mercury is super important. The more and more I do research, even Carl Jung was deciphering some Greek language on a hieroglyph, and he was basically saying the middle person, what it was, it had the symbol of Mercury. So everything about our ascension process has to do with Mercury. It has to do with transforming yourself is through Mercury. It's like the Philosopher's Stone. It's kind of all that. It's all about taking on that ability to take on that energy. It revolves around Mercury because Mercury is about healing. It's also about communication. So there's lots, and finance too. It's complicated. Mercury has lots of different aspects to it, but it's so relevant in the ascension path. It keeps showing up everywhere. Okay, so this was on August 8th, and Mercury is right on the center of the Beehive cluster in Cancer, which is super relevant because this is basically the manger of Jesus, and Mercury is there on the 8/8. Okay, so it's 8822, the date for Gematria. So this was basically like the beginning of the Lion's Gate because the sun is right between Cancer and Leo. So 5 days later, Mercury is almost in conjunction with the sun right in the center of the Lion's Gate. And we have Venus in Gemini, the twins. And then the moon is exactly in the Silver Gate, which is really relevant because it's almost on the placement of where Trump was born, okay, on that first supernova ever recorded. Okay, so it's the Crab Nebula. So we've got the Crab Nebula, the moon on it, and then we're dealing with the crab with the Lion's Gate. Mercury was just there. You know, and I've always said, I think Trump is represented by Mercury. So there's a lot of significance here with his birth date and Mercury. And you can see Venus is actually right on the Y of the winter hexagon, which ends up being a cube. So needless to say, it didn't surprise me when something so dramatic as Trump calling this a historic agreement with Israel happening on August 13th. Like, you know, there was so much power for Mercury that day, so that would be a perfect day to do something like that, which puts him in a higher light of peace for the world. You know, they're always saying that he's, you know, causing all chaos, but that was an extremely important peace agreement. So, of course, it was on the 13th of August with all the planetary alignments. And the dates between that date and the winter solstice is 130 days, you know, the magic 13. So, yeah, that's no coincidence either. Of course, you have to go back to pagan holidays, and we have the day of Hecate, which is August 13th when this all happened. And this is basically the divine feminine in paganism, where she is all about fire, and to me it's like she's ascension, she's Isis, she's, you know, all that. So yeah, so basically that's the day that he signed the peace agreement with Israel. Okay, so here it's in Italy on August 13th, the day of Hecate. Was exceptionally powerful spirit. She holds domination over life, death, regeneration, magic. She rules wisdom, choices, expiation, victory, vengeance, and travel. Hecate guards the frontier between life and death. So it's like the spirit world and the human world. She also advocates for women. Okay, so yeah, so basically that's a super important day. And of course, you know, a lot of these celebrations were done in Italy and ancient Europe. So, you know, these holidays were really important, and they may have been kind of hidden from our generation, but I think, you know, not that long ago, people knew about these holidays and, you know, August 13th and some other dates in August that are super important. So let's get into it some more. So then we have a moon eclipse with Mercury conjunction as well, all on Regulus. So I was like, ah, and Venus is still in Gemini. So that's going to be like really important because Regulus is like the Lion King. It's what the Sphinx lines up to, you know, with the lion's head of the Sphinx. And so it's one of the fixed stars. Okay, so it's really, really, really important. And the fact is there's an eclipse with the sun being in the Lion's Gate. Here it is. You can see it's all in conjunction right there with Regulus. Now, the dog star, the heliacal rising of Sirius, is around August 15th, 16th. So the 18th, 17th, 18th would be considered like the beginning of the new year in ancient Egypt, Babylonian times. So this is also part of the winter hexagon, but it's like the winter triangle, which is only a portion of the 6 stars down to 3. So this is super important this time of year. Okay, so it has such significance to ancient times. It's the dog day, the dog days of summer. It's the dog star. So this is where all that, you know, we still have the sayings, but we don't know what it means, right? But it's because Sirius is just starting to rise, the heliacal rising in the morning. And it starts to show. So this is why, you know, they worshipped it. It had to do with the River Nile and, you know, it being hot there. But anyhow, it has a lot of history. So it's interesting. I'm sure, you know, we're getting into some really important times. And also the 22nd is important. So I just want to go through all that and show you guys some of the significance that we have this month. So another important day in August is August 22nd, which is actually Vulcan Day, and that has to do with fire, ascension. You know, that he was a goldsmith, And you can see here on the 22nd, the moon is in Virgo, very close to the harvest star. Mercury is now moved past Regulus, but still in Leo, and Venus is still in Gemini. So, yes, this day, August 22nd, has to do with Vulcan and the whole story of him and how his mother Juno didn't like how he looked when he was born, and tossed him. And basically, he was saved at the bottom of the ocean, and then he came back and he made a beautiful jewelry for somebody, and then his mother got jealous, and he ended up marrying Venus. So it's the whole story of all that there, if you want to read it. And this is just talking about the Sirius star and the importance of the history with Sirius. So you always hear about Sirius being part of, the dog star. It was also Sopdet, I guess it's pronounced, Sopdet. No, I'm not pronouncing that right probably, but anyhow, it was called the glowing one. So again, because it's so bright in the sky, it's called the glowing one. But anything glowing, fire, you're getting towards ascension, mythology. So yeah, there's something to do with this star and the importance of it through Egypt. Well, because it represents, a little bit of ascension. It seems like that's where, in any time that the stars are representing that, that's what they have a huge importance. So yeah, the history tells us the truth. And no coincidence, 122 days from August 22nd to the winter solstice. So again, number 22, the significance of that number, is like it's the one number after number 21. And the reason 21 is so important, it's the Trinity, but it's also the universe card, tarot cards, and then 22, is add one, so it's like, yeah, I'm always, the number 22 is super important. And we're in the 2-2 year, so it's 2020 vision, right? So I wanted to talk about the constellation Hydra and Sexton and the constellations that are just between the Lion's Gate, well, between Leo and Cancer, just below it. So here we have, it's called the 32nd, or 32 again, card. Illustrates the 9 constellations that are represented on this 32 cards. So they have all these ones that are just below there. So I wanted to go into that and show you how they're using the numbers, like, because these people, these educated people back then, these astronomers, they knew all this ancient knowledge. So they coded it with everything that they started to map out and do. They kind of did this underlying wisdom to see if you could see it. Okay, so if you can see it, if you can open your heart and you have your mind open and you're not judgmental and you're open to all knowledge as being one, you will see this repetitive pattern of these numbers of how they were logging things. 32, it's super important. Like, even with the tarot cards, everything, it's all done for, to create this secret knowledge. Now everybody goes, oh, it's evil, it's secret knowledge is evil. But no, they're just showing you if you have the eyes to see it. If it causes you to have fear, then you're not ready for the knowledge. It's like it's freaking you out, like you're not able to handle it. So better that you learn more until you realize all knowledge is one knowledge. Okay, so once you understand that everything interrelates, like science, religion, everything has an underlying thread that runs through it. And it has to do with being open in your heart. Okay, so open in your heart means open in your mind. You can't have an open heart with a closed mind. It doesn't work. Okay, so you have to have both really expanded and open, and you'll start to see these repetitive patterns. So, but what's interesting in this year, the planets are also telling the story through these ancient times where they celebrated. Okay, so the planets are in this year telling the story, as well as the numerology of the story. So the planets are all in sync. So it's like they could see ahead, or they did know, because Rittenhouse was able to predict where the planets were with Benjamin Franklin. So they were able to do this, and they knew what year was going to have all this ancient wisdom, knowledge, in synchronicity. Okay, so they knew most likely that this year was going to be super important. Hence why they mapped all it out for Trump to be there. Okay, so they know the knowledge, but they don't want to tell us straight out because that ruins the game, right? It's for those that can see. So you have to figure it out yourself. So most of the knowledge numbers that they use, like 007, this relates to Venus's score, and also Mercury is got the number 21 relating to it. So you start to see, like, of course, you have the orbit number, you have all these different synodic numbers, you have all these different numbers, but they know what those numbers mean in relation to the planets. So because we're not educated about it, we're like clueless. But when you start to, this information just comes to me a little bit at a time. It's not like I've read it in a book and, oh, there's all the answers. It's just slowly you start to see that, oh, 007, it's Venus? I had no idea, right? I also, like, I think one of my old videos, explained how it relates to phi. There was like, I think it was off by 007. That's a mathematical link. But then when it creates a planetary link, you're like, oh, okay, 007, it's Venus. So, yeah, and Venus would be the divine feminine. So this holiday on August 13th, when Trump, created this peace agreement with Israel, that is worshiping Venus as well. Okay, so it's all interrelated. That's why it's so kind of mind-boggling to get your head around it all. So I was curious, number 7 being Venus, and of course it's the chariot. Okay, the chariot is, basically what carries you to your salvation, to, there's this whole story with the sun, and I think it's Asclepius or something, yeah, that he's going in the chariot with the 4 horses. It's all to do with, being able to ride in the sun chariot. So it's basically going, to me, that's like you're going through the portal, you're going through the black hole, the black hole of the sun, Black Hole Sun, the song. So basically you go through the sun and then you get to this other enlightenment place. Okay, so you need your chariot, you need your armor, you need your chariot to get there. This is what this is all about. But people, anything to do with the sun gets like considered like, oh, it's Egyptian, it's evil. But it's, be careful what you believe, because these ancient tribes and ancient cultures all worship the same thing when they didn't have any ability to interrelate with each other. So they all knew something, and so it's not just programmable, oh, they're worshiping the sun and that's when they sacrifice and it's some weird thing. They knew a story happened with the sun. Okay, so it's like, it's kind of obvious that they want you to fear it so that you can't get out of here, basically. Okay, so here's the visual from an ancient zodiac, and we have the Antilla. It's called Pneumatica, which, now they just call it Antilla. So I did a little research on that. We have the Magna Carta, which is like freedom and liberty, with on the right-hand side here. We also have, the ecliptical, you can see is like actually crossing in this map just on Virgo's wing, which is really the ascension star, Zavijava. So I thought that was kind of cool. I circled that. And of course we have the owl. We have the crow. There's a whole history with that bird. That bird's changed many times. And then we have sextant, which is the instrument that they did all the measurement for the sky with. Okay, and we have crater, which is the actual cup. Okay, so which would be like kind of like, you could say maybe the Holy Grail. It's a cup relating to ancient story with Apollo and the crow not bringing the water and everything. So there's all these stories, mythos that go with these different constellations, but you need to kind of read those stories and understand, kind of get the gist of it, what it means. Is it kind of pointing out something good, or is it pointing out something bad? And then start to see if there's like a change in the story with other cultures. And then you can start to kind of figure out the stories. That's basically what I do. I kind of like look into all the different cultures and then see if there's an underlying storyline going on between, you know, the different constellations. And it's really weird when you go into some of these ancient, you know, countries like Romania and stuff, and the different names they had for the constellations. It's like, whoa, like Cygnus. I was like, oh, it's Northern Cross. It's the cross of Christ. I just, you know, it was just logical to me. But in Romania, they have Cygnus as the cross of Christ as part of their constellations. So you're like, oh my God, you know, it's like, it's obvious, but they've kind of hidden it from us, from, you know, why, when they change the names of certain things, to hide it. So because it lies so close to the ecliptic, the moon sometimes passes through it. And it's weird how they have it shaped. It's like a pyramid. But some of the depictions of the, you know, the outline of the constellation, it ends up being like a diamond. So it's like a diamond, but also a pyramid. So just remember that when you understand, you know. And this was their instrument, how they measured the sky. So this was really sacred to them, okay? All the astronomers that were, you know, doing all the mapping of the stars, you know. So it's interesting that it's right in the middle path between, you know, Leo and Cancer, the sun and the moon, which is the two pillars in Freemasonry, and it's the pyramid right there. So I was kind of like, oh, this is most likely the whole pyramid symbolism is this constellation. Sextant was actually had a T on the end of it, and it was relating to the number 6 because of the angle of the instrument was like 1/6 of a circle. That's the etymology that I can come up with. Now, the only history is that supposedly this instrument he lost following his observatory catching on fire in 1679, September. So his observatory caught on fire, he lost it, and this is why it was named, you know, in honor of this thing being lost. I think it's a little bit more detailed than that, but I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, so they mention the 3 stars, but they also say there's 17 stars. There's all these exoplanets in there too. 17 again, you know, Q. So that's interesting. We have the Trinity, and then we have the 17. And it's a pyramid shape. And it was their most, you know, important instrument to map out the sky. So, and it also looks like a diamond. So yeah, I think it's pretty important. So it's also tied to Regulus and Lucida, and that is like a diamond. And also it's Saint Veronica. It relates to that, which happens to go back to Vulcan again, you know. So yeah, it says, yeah, it's pretty important. So, and then in Chinese, it's the heavenly ministry. So that's important too. So I think it really is the pyramid. Here it also has black holes in it. So that's interesting as well. And of course, the Tiffany Lucida diamond. So we got the Tiffany store naming, you know, after it. So that is that constellation. Who would have guessed? So I found this ancient zodiac. And you know, I always find it interesting to see if the constellations have changed. And then, of course, Cancer is weird, right? It's like a crab. They named this terrible disease after it. But here it's called Herm and Nubius. You know, so this is Hermes. It's Mercury. We have the 69 still symbolizing it. Also, they have a 21 there. So that's interesting because 21 is 3. So you got your 369. This is all for the constellation Cancer, the moon. And it also has the reptile. So it's that whole, you know, reptilian force, which I do believe the moon is a construct somehow. The dark side of the moon is like nefarious to some degree. Okay, so the moon energy is part of the whole control of this planet. Okay, that's the way I see it. You don't want to be on the moon. You don't want to be like just sun. You want to be in the middle. Okay, but then the middle is Venus, Mercury, and Saturn on the path, the middle path. So it's all interesting. It's all interrelated, but you can see it as bad or see it as good. You know, a lot of times I see the moon as, you know, very powerful and gives you lots of direction. It affects us because it's related to water and we're water. So I don't see it all as negative, but it's just interesting to go back in these constellations to see what was really depicted. Of course, you can see the sun is in the middle of this zodiac with the wings. That symbol is the sun. The round circle with a dot is the sun. So the sun, you know, is the wing. You know, we got like, it's almost like Nibiru, the wing planet. It's the sun. Okay, so yeah, so a lot of times things get twisted, and I just really find it interesting to go way, way back in history to see what they were saying back then. This one's interesting as well because we have Cancer that's circled by the blue. It's, you know, Hermes again, you know, the head of the dog head kind of. And he's also killing this Leo, you know, so it's weird. It's like the moon and the sun are fighting there. And then we have Virgo as the owl, which is basically what's on the back of Hydra, right below Virgo. Has the wheat chaff. We have Antilla, mnemonic, which is the the wind pump that kind of like sucks you up. It's always weird that it's placed in the center here. Then we have the river, somebody's floating down the river, and that would be Aquarius with all the water shooting out of the person, and then the river there. So was that, like, I know I saw one constellation once depicting Aquarius, and Aquarius was a river. The guy was pouring out a river. It wasn't like a pot. It was actually a river, so that's probably coming back to that. Then we have Aries, which is the snake symbol on the, you know, on the pole, which is almost the caduceus. Okay, so that's Aries. So yeah, it's really fun to look back at them and see what they really meant. Symbols mean everything. Yeah, so there's the view again of the wind pump there, Antilla. And the Magna Carta, Carta is all about liberty and freedom. It all went through to the Constitution. This is ancient, goes back to the Stuarts in England, and you can learn all the history about it if you don't know it already. And, you know, it's the Great Charter, you know, Magna. It's pretty similar. It's got the word great in it. So, you know, this is what we're just recycling history right now, and trying to bring back the liberty and freedoms back to the forefront of what America was built on. So, all interesting, but it's in the sky. Everything's in the sky. Okay, so the Antilla pneumatica has relation to engineering. It's a pressurized system that, you know, compresses gases, and that's kind of weird. That constellation, you know, it's always depicted in a wind, like a wind blowing or a vacuum, and it's all about, you know, compressed gas. Wouldn't surprise me if it's Zion. I did something about that a while back in one of my videos. So interesting. So there's a whole history about this Antilla constellation. And it relates to the Hieron of Alexandria, which the word hero comes from. So this man was a Greek mathematician, engineer, and he created lots of different inventions. One was steam-powered device. Anyhow, so he's super smart, but eventually all his manuscripts got destroyed in the fire of Alexandria. Everything was lost except for a few things. So this was, I guess, you know, one of the very first scientists that had the ability, you know, to understand astrology, math, you know, the one knowledge. He had it all. So interesting that they name, you know, pneumatics, which is relating to him, which is what that constellation Antilla, the wind vacuum compression of gas, is named after. So it's always fascinates me, when it's like full circle going, back to Alexandria again, So yeah, where everything, a lot of the knowledge got lost. So the other constellation is Corvus, which is the crow. Left-handed linchpin is what it was named in China. And no meaning is given for this name, but to me the word cross seems to be Arabic version of the Latin cras. It's the cawing of the raven or the crows was heard cross in Latin speakers. So it means like tomorrow, tomorrow. And Apollio, he asked him to go fetch water, and then he didn't. He hung around the fig tree and ate. So he's kind of like this, lazy, deceitful. There's that going on. Then there's the, let's see, the roots back down to laughter. Okay, so, and it translates to the arc, translates to the sun. So there's that, the arc is the chariot again, the sun chariot, see? So it's all coming back from Sanskrit, laughter, which means, you have to be in this higher vibration to be able to ride in that sun chariot. This was weird at the bottom here. It's talking about lying, aggressive, greediness, but it also can cause some natives to become alligators. So it's like, what, it makes you into the reptile again. So it's weird. It's like it has like a bipolar, kind of meaning to it, because the bird also has different meanings in other cultures. So I'm just going to get into that and show you, what it means, because it wasn't always a crow either. It was a mockingbird. So, we saw that in the movie Hunger Games, is the mockingbird, right? So yeah, it's like the defiance of authority. You're kind of mocking authority and laughing at it, So does that mean, you're going against the group think, against the socialism think, if you're a crow, kind of, you have that selfish side to you. And selfishness can be also related to the higher wisdom, because it's like now you see all knowledges as one, but you see yourself as an individual. You don't see yourself so much as a collective, just following into slavery. So there's like, it's always this aspect of, what are they trying to get you to understand from these symbols? So you need to really always keep an open mind to it and just see all the interpretations of it. Okay, so more about the raven. So it's like a loud bird, it's croaking. It means bright. So again, like glowing, shining, right? Bright. And it also has mythos with Odin. He always had ravens on his back, so that on his shoulder, sorry. So this, relates to knowledge, or speaking of these birds, eavesdropping on conversations. It's like in the Game of Thrones, Bran had, the crow or the raven. It was the, what did he call it, the one-eyed raven. So he had his eye open. Okay, it's like the ability to go around and see everything, be above it all, to kind of have the news or the knowledge of the whole thing. And it's talking about that here, like it comes down to journalism, conversation, information, gossip. It's like you hear everything, you see everything, is being the raven. So this is part of the whole mythos. Yeah, and the whole Game of Thrones, his name was Brandon. He eventually became the king. It's a giant Celtic god in Britain, who was mortally wounded in battle, buried in London. But really important character, and of course they used him for the Game of Thrones. He was wounded, but then he ended up being the third eye, or the one-eyed raven, third eye. I don't know. I can't remember what they called it. I think it was one-eyed raven, but the whole symbolism of all that show with the dragons, it's all to do with ascension. And then the Walking Dead, the White Walkers, that's like the AI groupthink. Okay, so the symbolism is all there. So it's just a matter of understanding history. But when I watch these shows and stuff, my intuition's like, oh, that means something, that means something, and then it just kind of sits there, and then somehow the information comes through little bits and pieces here and there, but the stories that lead me there is always when I do the research on the constellations. It's like all the mythos is related to the constellations, and then all the movies are related to the mythos, which are related to the constellations. So it's like a big giant thing of one knowledge, right? You start to see, but what's it all about? It's all about, for those that can see, can actually have individual logical thought so that you can see it all as an illusion. And then once you see it all as an illusion, you kind of like, your mind kind of just explodes and expands. And then once you can do that, you start to realize that your health and your well-being and your sanity relates to how you connect to nature, not how you connect to all these false paradigms that they're constantly shoving in your face. So it's your choice to disconnect and find your own intuition and connection to knowledge, and the correct knowledge, the truth, is done through you. It's not done through anyone else. And then, of course, people feel threatened because, you feel this whole new experience, and then you're like, oh, I want to go share this with people, and then all of a sudden, they're calling you names, and then you're like, whoa, why are they calling me names? I'm trying to help them, and then, oh, now they're angry at me, and, it's just insanity. But eventually, you get to the point where you realize, hey, I can give out the information. I shouldn't feel threatened if people don't like it or whatever. But it's not about me, and it's not even about them. It's about just putting the knowledge out there, and whoever wants to gravitate towards it will, and whoever is not meant to won't. And just leave it alone. It's not like, don't get emotionally attached that everybody needs to see it from your point of view. Okay, this knowledge is really, really hard to grasp, considering the constant programming we've been under for our whole lives. So most people just don't want to go there, right? So it's for those that can see, and there's a lot of us. There's a huge portion of the population, I think, is awake, but it's still not openly spoken about. So even if people are awake, they're keeping it kind of on the hush, because they don't like, to feel ostracized, which I totally get. So it's you're a hermit with this knowledge for a reason, okay? Because you don't see the the whole group agenda as being super healthy. So you tend to keep away from all that chaos, and therefore you become like a hermit with the hermetic knowledge. Okay, right. So it wasn't the crow constellation that was the mockingbird. It was actually the owl sitting on Hydra's back. It's all in the same location, but it doesn't matter. It just means that that location in the sky is really important. So, it's the bird, anything to do with birds. I don't see them as evil. I see it as, you're winged, you have your ascension wings. So symbolism of the butterfly, the moth, phoenix rising, the Bennu bird was actually the phoenix. Cygnus is the swan. These are all related to ascension, because Cygnus used to be, the cross of Jesus Christ in Romania, and it also is the Northern Cross, so it is the cross. So the bird path I don't see as negative, okay? The bird path, anything winged, it means you're on the ascension path. So yeah, so this astronomer Monnier went to this island where they were, going to find this bird, and it was something to do with the dodo bird. Anyhow, it ended up being, the owl. They switched it to this bird, and then it was a blue rock thrush. So this bird is not a mockingbird, it was an owl. Then it turned into this other bird called Tudus solitaris. So yeah, the bird changed many times. So that's the owl. And it's actually, they're saying that it was kind of like at the tip of Libra, which is exactly when the sun is there for Halloween. Okay, so the whole Halloween path is, I do believe, the ascension. It's, when they're worshiping the dead or whatever, it's, they want it to be all scary, but it's actually, the Grateful Dead, kind of, basically. But that is interesting that was where, the tip of Libra is where this owl was. So, yeah, it's definitely Halloween. And Halloween, interesting this year, is a full moon. So, and there's also, that's the second moon. There's also another full moon on the 1st of October. So that's very interesting as well, because that's a huge, huge, huge ancient holiday, Halloween. So a lot of interesting stuff this year. Okay, and I found this other bird, the Halcyon days, relate to peaceful, calm days, but this relates to a bird, a European kingfisher, the Greek legend. So the ancients believed the bird made a floating nest in the Aegean Sea and had the power to calm the waves while brooding her eggs. But what's interesting is this is celebrated on the winter solstice. I was like, no way. Well, we got it at the beginning on the 14th and 15th of December, which that's when Mercury is in conjunction with the moon. I believe the sun is on the 14th of December. So this is all relating to this year, the planets, aligning to these ancient festivals. Okay, so that's why I'm kind of like, what's going on now in August? And then we have some stuff going on in September. This is 9/11, and you can see there's some stuff going on here. Yeah, we got a moon in the twins towers and the Geminis. And then we have Venus in Cancer right on the manger of Christ again, the beehive cluster. So love with the moon being in Gemini. So yeah, it's actually a good thing, I think, with the love being in Cancer. And then the sun on the Shishme star, so yeah. And then on November 22nd, we have the sun just basically by the Zabijava star. Oops, I said basically. Somebody wrote a comment saying I said, I wish I had $1 for every time you said basically in one of my old videos. And I was like, yeah, me too. Anyhow, it's just, I say it when I'm in pause, when my visuals aren't lining up with what I'm saying. I kind of like, But anyhow, so Mercury is on the Spices star. That's on September 22nd as well. And then we have Venus right in the Lion's Gate. So the heart between the moon and the sun pillar. So that is September 22nd. So, which is the fall equinox. Okay, so that's when we go into the fall. And so most likely something pretty dramatic will happen on that date. With all this alignments in the sky, plus it being the fall, so we go into the downward cycle, right? So I do think this is the long winter, especially with Halloween, as well as the Halcyon Days festival being December 14th, and then we go into the winter solstice where the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is like, it's like so much is going on in the sky. It's mind-boggling. I have trouble keeping up with it. Somebody had written me and go, have you checked out 9/11 yet? I'm like, no, I hadn't even done that. So this is what, when I started seeing it all lining up more and more to the detail, I just thought I'd have to share it with you guys. So anyhow, I know the video is a little long, but that's the next little bit coming up. So I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.